organization that has worked tirelessly to educate Canadians about Lyme disease and its effects for decades. The Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation is run by volunteers, and it's dedicated to promoting research, education, diagnosis, and treatment of Lyme and associated diseases. They do amazing work, and this podcast is just one of their many initiatives. On this edition of Looking at Lyme, we're going to meet the founder and president. Jim Wilson has a long history with Lyme disease in this country, from coast to coast. He knows all too well its effects on people living with Lyme and their families. Jim contracted Lyme 30 years ago in Nova Scotia, back when very little was known about Lyme disease in Canada. His own daughter contracted Lyme 10 years later in British Columbia's Okanagan Valley. Jim founded CanLyme to increase awareness and educate medical professionals. He joins us now from Kelowna, British Columbia. Hello, Jim.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Great, thank you. Let's go back to the very beginning and talk about why did you start CanLyme?
Well, the reason I started is because I contracted Lyme in 1991 in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And it took a long time to get an appropriate diagnosis and treatment. Then during that time, we had moved to British Columbia from Nova Scotia. And in 2001, my daughter and other kids in our community here contracted Lyme disease. And that was just too much of a coincidence for my mind. And so the more I looked into it, what I found was it was not the disease that was rare in Canada, it was the diagnosis that was rare. But yet we had always been told that it was such a rare East Coast American disease. And still to this day, some doctors are telling patients that we don't have it here, or we don't have it in a particular region, but we definitely do, and it's coast to coast.
How have attitudes changed since you founded CanLyme?
General public are becoming much more aware now, and are questioning the denial of doctors, and as a result of that, they have to seek out their own methods of diagnosis and treatment, because the medical community is still locked in old dogma that just hasn't held up.
So over the past 2 decades, what successes has CanLyme had?
Well, I think the biggest successes we've had is raising the public profile of the disease through various types of media, radio, television, newspapers, magazines, and social media. So I think that's been a success. We've raised the profile within government, and sadly, that hasn't really led to any improvement. Certainly, with the selling of our tick removal kits and whatnot, our profile is out there. Right across Canada, many companies with out-of-doors employees order these kits in bulk orders so that they can have them in each of their medical kits or their pickup trucks, glove box, or that sort of thing, because the people who hadn't really encountered ticks are now running into ticks much more frequently.
So when thinking in particular about awareness and prevention of Lyme disease in Canada, what do you think is one of the biggest barriers?
I think the biggest barrier is that medical dogma. And sadly, our medical leadership in Canada is stuck and is intentionally hanging on to this dogma, ignoring the volumes of reams of science and published research out there showing that their methodology has been wrong, and it's still wrong. Diagnostics and treatment are terrible. Prevention in itself requires a more rounded knowledge in the first place of the disease itself, and the public and the medical community haven't been getting that knowledge, the appropriate knowledge. So as a result, there hasn't been a lot of investment in prevention methods across Canada, because the medical leadership, specifically from the infectious disease community, has always told government that this is no big deal, and that it's nothing to be concerned about it. They have it all under control, and that is so far from the reality that it's almost laughable.
Now, I know you're involved in working with people from coast to coast all across Canada. How would you describe public awareness about Lyme in Canada and across Canada? Because I'm sure you see some geographical differences.
Well, certainly in the more highly endemic areas, it has become, a more talked about topic, simply because there's so many people becoming infected, such as Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba. Not so much so in Manitoba, Saskatchewan yet, but it's coming. It's there, just not in the numbers that other provinces are seeing. And the same with British Columbia. It's certainly an issue, very underdetected issue, underdiagnosed issue in British Columbia as well.
Do you see that certain provinces are making more strides and advances than others?
That's hard to say. As far as public awareness, they're making strides, but as far as patients getting appropriate treatment for the long-term consequences of Lyme disease, for those people who aren't treated quickly and appropriately, they have long-term chronic infections, and the medical community is not prepared to deal with that. In fact, the Association of Medical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases of Canada, AMI, they still claim that chronic Lyme disease does not exist, despite the abundance of published peer-reviewed papers showing otherwise. So it's been very difficult from a patient perspective.
Yeah, there seems to be an overwhelming amount of information online about Lyme disease. So how can people access the right information and the right support?
Well, there is an abundance of information out there. Sites like the Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation have an abundance of information, and we are very science-based, evidence-based. And so what we state and the research that we publish, we don't publish, we post links to published scientific papers. So there's a lot of information that can be garnered from our website. And there's other comparable websites which are patient-supported, but yet science-based, because, we deal with scientists from around the globe on every aspect of Lyme disease, right from the microbiology to the entomological studies to physician case studies, physician training. So we have a great deal of evidence-based information that we provide.
It is so important to know where to get the right information.
It's sadly, very available to the public, but as many people know, the medical community, the physicians themselves are told to ignore sites like ours and only go to the the government sites or the medical professional organizational sites, but those sites and the information provided therein it's full of circular reasoning, and they mostly cite their own membership papers or those of those research studies that were designed in such a way to have a certain outcome. So there's a lot of confirmation bias in our mainstream publicly funded research that sadly is not readily available to scientists who don't wish to just follow a certain design. There's very limited freedom of thought allowed in the way our current research dollars are allocated relative to tick-borne diseases, and I presume relative to many things. And I think that's something our politicians are going to have to grapple with.
Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be many opportunities for physicians to get training. I know CanLyme was able to offer grants for physicians and healthcare professionals this year and in the past to attend the ILADS conference. Are there any other places you would recommend physicians would be able to access training?
Well, I think that's internationally probably the best that's available right now. And through that, through ILADS, which is the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society, through that they are able to communicate with physicians and researchers around the world. So I think it's a great resource, and they can access just about any field of interest that they may have relative to tick-borne diseases.
It would be really nice to see more of this content taught in medical schools as well.
Oh, absolutely. And currently, it's the old guard dogma who control everything that goes into our medical curriculum, and they have this very strange definition of what they call patient collaboration. It's not really patient collaboration. It's them designing and doing stuff, and then you coming back and reviewing it later. And then as you do your review, typically historically, it's ignored anyhow, any input given. So true collaboration from patient input is required to start right from the beginning, right from the terms of reference of what it is that you're studying or going to look at. You don't bring the patient in after everything's been done, the surveys have been written. That's not collaboration. That's just checking off a box just to serve a particular need. And sadly, that's been allowed to occur through the Canadian Institute of Health Research and Public Health Agency of Canada. And it's a very, very sad testament to the lack of professionalism within our research and medical structure in Canada.
So you have some background in law and investigating medical malpractice. How has that helped you with CanLyme?
Well, it helped in the initial beginnings because, number one, I had already been exposed to the medical community and some of the deficits therein. So I knew there were problems within the medical community. And it also made me much more curious when my daughter contracted Lyme disease a decade after I got it, and 4,500 kilometers or so from where I got it. And there's two members of one family out contracting what we were told was such a rare disease. That just didn't jive with my my spidey senses went up,
Yeah.
and that's why I started CanLyme, was to fill that void of data gap that was there.
What do you hope CanLyme will accomplish in 2021 and beyond?
Well, we continue to strive to push the hand of the medical community, our medical leadership, Public Health Agency of Canada, to be appropriately collaborative. Even on the Canadian Institute of Health Research website, they state right in there that the best outcomes for any medical research is when they bring the patients in right from the get-go, right from the design of any research, right from the terms of reference, and they equally participate in the development of that. And until that occurs, we're not going to see things change. And so, we're going to continue on that basis, but we're also going to continue to fund our own science.
Absolutely.
With the help of our amazing donors that we have, and the excellent Canadian scientists that are working on Lyme disease. So we are helping move this forward in spite of the dropping of the ball by the medical leadership, who should be doing what we are now having to do through private donors. There's a great deal of our taxpayer money funding research that is just so flawed and so full of confirmation bias that it's just an absolute inappropriate expenditure of our tax dollars, and very, very little oversight into that. In fact, it's a very closed shop. And when you try and penetrate it, the doors are closed very, very quickly.
Thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. I'm so grateful for your dedication and your ongoing commitment to CanLyme. And I really look forward to speaking with you next year to hear about all the projects that CanLyme is working on.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Jim Wilson is the president of CanLyme, an organization dedicated to research, education, diagnosis, and treatment of Lyme and tick-borne illnesses. I continue to be impressed by his selflessness and his commitment to this organization. It was such an honor to have him join us. That is another podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Cormode. Stay safe in the outdoors.